Well, well, well. If it isn't the last meeting of the year, could be the best meeting of the year. You never know. All right, let's ping a few folks. We'll get started in just a minute. One last minute. Hello. All right. Shriti, I think I've dragged this out long enough. Happy New Year, I guess.
Happy New Year to everybody on the call.
I tell you what, it couldn't get any worse than 2020. So, or hopefully not anyway. Well, I won't break tradition. Good morning. But so Shriti, I don't know if you want to. Do you want to lead us off today and get us organized? Get us.
Yeah, sure. All right. Welcome everybody to the last meeting of the year. This is the Meshery Dev Call where we discuss everything related to the Meshery project. So if you're on here, welcome. If you're a newcomer, I'm sure you'll take away something from the call. And if you don't, then we should ramp up and do better calls. All right. Before we get started, we have this old tradition of newcomers introducing themselves. And as Shubhang asked first, I think you should go first. So, Shubhang, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Shubhank. I'm from India. I'm still a student in my final year undergrad, and I actually found out the Meshery project via the Community Bridge Linux Foundation program. So I applied in it, and I hope that I get selected. And I really want to contribute and work towards this open source community. Though I'm just a beginner, like I really started to look around yesterday and day before yesterday, so relatively new to the technical stack and everything, but really looking forward to contributions.
There's nothing to follow that up with, Shubham. That's music to my ears. Music to you're in the right place, and this is you caught us before the end of the year too. So welcome. Nice to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Which university are you attending?
It's Thapa University, Patiala. It's in India.
Oh, very good. Whereabouts in India?
In the state of Punjab, I think it's somewhere in the northern side of India.
Okay. Okay. Good. Hopefully not close to New Delhi or anything like that. Would be
It is like 6 hours away from that place.
okay. Whew. All right. That's
Six
far
and a
enough
half.
away. We're good. We're good.
I'm not gonna say anything. Um, let me continue. Alonso, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yes, hi, good morning. Well, my name is Alonso. I live in Mexico and I have been kind of contributing in some translating pages uh, with some other people here in Mexico. That was initiated by a workshop that was given in an online event by Software Guru. So I am very excited to, well, I'm trying to be contributing in that kind of translating stuff and also getting to learning some of the tech needed to contribute in some other more important issues about Meshery. Thanks. Good year.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Alonso, by the way, do you prefer an S or a Z in your name?
Yeah, an S.
Oh, very good. Okay. All right. I've been good. Alonso, very good to hear your, very good to see you again, I guess. Uh, well, good morning to you. I think maybe you're the only one I can actually say that to. We're,
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock here, but not too early.
nice. Very nice to have you. Good. Since you're here, I'm tossing on a topic down below, maybe something for us to talk about a little bit. And when we do, Alonso, maybe I'll hit you up in chat as well. And the same for Shabank and, well, and probably for Franklin as well, is because I already know for Sudan, some areas of further interest. So Alonso, bunch of things going on in different projects, something for us to brainstorm on, something for you to sort of highlight your area of interest, and we'll get you better acquainted, sort of get you slowly ramped in that area.
Excellent. Excellent.
Good evening.
Franklin.
Good evening, everyone. My
Hi,
name is
Good
Frank.
evening.
Franklin Okole. I'm from Nigeria. It's evening here, so I don't know if I'm trespassing.
Yep.
I'm a software engineer. I started learning and Golang and JavaScript. I made my first contribution yesterday. I think I fixed some documentation and it was merged on that field. Amazing. So I'm here to learn more to contribute to the community. I'm also confused on the goal. Like I was asking Shriti yesterday that I really don't understand the Meshery and all that stuff. It's really, really confusing. So I hope through this meeting I should be able to understand more about it. Thank you.
Nice. Franklin, perfect. This turns out like what a sweet confluence of a number of, well, relatively newcomers. I don't know what point people shake loose that moniker, but Franklin, you're well on your way with your first PR merged. So cool. Okay. By the way, for Shabank and Franklin and Alonso, uh, I know that you guys have probably seen this before, but it's worth highlighting a little bit lower in the doc that Shriti is sharing right now. And actually, Shriti, maybe, yeah, if you scroll, there's a hyperlink to this repository overview document. It's a little bit further up. Yeah, there we go. Right next to Alonso's name. If you haven't seen it, or if you haven't seen it in a while, it's a good doc to just give you a quick survey of the projects and the tech that's included in the projects. So whether that was more front end in nature or back end or DevOps or um, and Franklin, you're in really good company. Most of us here, at least by count, have no idea what the hell service meshes are. So that said, there's a small minority of us that really do know what they are and make them. And um, actually, every service mesh that's represented on our landscape, like basically every service mesh that the world is aware of, um, we have maintainers of them here in this community. So um, this community is unique in a few different ways, but that's probably one of them. So anyway, for those who are new to service meshes, there's a short O'Reilly book, a relatively easy read. It's a great intro to the space. I'm going to drop a link into it's free, so I'll drop a link into the right here. So
All right. Now we have more than 10 minutes in. Let's start with the agenda. Okay. Is Ishan on the call? Ping him. Ping him. Yeah.
Hey, yeah, I'm here.
Hey. All right. You're up. Siddhan, Ishan, and Santosh.
yeah, so to be fair to Ishan and is Santosh, I don't know that he's on. He's going to miss out today. He'll have to watch the recording. But I figured Santosh and Ishan, I know Sudan as well, have you guys have had some questions about development environments and sort of getting your dev system up and going. I figured,
Mhm.
hey, this is a great call to talk about that on, and to see if we can improve contributing docs, or just make sure that people are able to compile and run. And so, Ishan, maybe you could lead us off, like because I think just even getting a perspective about your dev environment and any areas that you might have stumbled on, I don't know, stumbled over, would be helpful to
Mhm.
everyone else. So,
Okay.
do you want to? Yeah.
Uh, so basically, I started I started, I think, in the wrong way. I tried to set up my adapter first, directly cloning it and uh, trying to run it on my local system. And basically, what I was trying to do is running Meshery through Meshery CTL on my local and trying to connect my adapter to it, which was kind of a long route. Uh, so now I have kind of built it from the repository itself, and with a little help from the Slack group, I was able to set up the UI as well. Uh, the only thing I saw was basically the make file, which exists currently. It has a list of adapter URLs, which currently point to, if I just open it up. Okay, so it currently points to Meshery local.layer5.io. Okay, which
And yeah, and Sean, actually, if you're all right, do you mind do you mind sharing, and that way everyone
yeah,
will.
yeah, sure,
All right.
sure. Mm,
This is actually what you're about to point out is something of a timely topic.
mhm,
Vineeth, Vineeth, who's on the call and who's interning at Layer Five, and Utkarsh actually, who's on the call, also interning here. Both of them have been busy in this area on extensibility, which is perhaps unbeknownst to you, something that you're about to highlight. Um,
mhm.
but
Okay,
but
so so basically, I was trying run local. Okay, and what I noticed was adapter URLs is being passed as an environment variable. And right now, adapter URLs, all the service mesh adapters that uh, we have separate ports, but the DNS that we are using for it is currently Meshery local .layer5.io. So either I'll have to set up my etc host, if I'm not wrong, uh, to point to the correct to basically set up these hosts, or I have to go and edit this by hand uh, to point to something like localhost port 10,009 or something like that. Or maybe am I missing something here that Meshery local layer 5 even in cloud local it was there because uh, all I could find in the docs was something that while developing your adapter, what you can do is run it on a local port and point Meshery uh, to that port using the dashboard, which I can show here. I think yeah. So and another thing that I saw was that based on the port numbers currently it's not picking up, maybe the mapping is not being picked up correctly. So if I add all these URLs here, uh, 10,002, we have dedicated service meshes for each of these. 10,009 is, I guess, the open service mesh, but currently it shows me localhost port number instead of. So instead, I don't know right now in the UI how we are showing this, but maybe if we can have a mapping of uh, a service mesh name to the dedicated port number, we can directly show it here. uh, Otherwise what happens is it starts showing up localhost, 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 and it's hard to figure out that which mesh are we talking about. Something like this, you see this.
Totally, totally, totally. Very good. Vineeth, Utkarsh, Abhishek. Anybody else want to field the question?
So right now I only have one adapter running, which is the OSM, and the thing is that right now the make file is referring to uh, this is the actual make file that you'll find in the master, but I have a local stash. I'll just show you.
Oh my goodness! You just pooped on your local stash.
So I've changed this to local host right now. So because of this, we are seeing all these local host entries. So what my guess is that, uh, for every service mesh, if I say something like, Istio, something like this, and then I do a etc/host entry to point Istio to localhost 10,000, then I would start seeing Istio here. This should not be the case. I feel that we should have a mapping somewhere in the UI code, somewhere in the JavaScript, and all these ports 10,000 to 10,009 should have the respective names of the service meshes, and they should show up all here with the right name.
Huh. Oh, huh. This is interesting. So Abhishek, Utkarsh, and Vineeth are gentlemen who I'm going to call out by name to so that people can hear from someone other than me. And they're all, I think, capable of answering this question. I actually have a question, which is, Ishan, if you go back to your the make file,
Mm-hmm.
did there might have been a recent update that I overlooked. The local host and the port.
Yeah, I just pointed out that this is my current
Oh,
stash.
oh, I see. Oh, very good. Yep. The yeah.
Yeah, I'll just do
Hopefully you
a
went.
git stash. So this is the current master. So currently it is Meshery
Cool.
local.layerfile.io
Yeah.
on
You know.
master. All
Yep.
for all of the meshes.
All right. So Anybody want to
So the
explain this one?
problem with this is as well is that if I update my etc host, if I don't update the make file, but if I start pointing Meshery local.layer5.io to my local adapter, all I'm going to see over here is instead of localhost, all of these entries are, all of these pills are going to say Meshery local.layer5.io. They're not going to say istio, console, or dash dash dash, all the service meshes.
Yep. I'll give Utkarsh, Vineeth, and Abhishek one last time to speak up.
Yeah, actually, if you would like, yeah, regarding that Meshery local.layer5.io, actually, that's something
Hmm.
that you will have to, as you mentioned, that you will have to add it in Etsy host so that it can point to your local host. And
Hmm.
actually, that mapping thing, I mean, if it would like show Istio and all, if you would spin it up using Docker, because in Docker, it just like we have, I mean, Docker host would basically resolve it for you, so you would see Istio and all in there.
Hmm.
But if you would hardcode Istio or OSM or something like that here, then you would have to go to your Etsy host and make entry for each of them. Docker host won't do
Uh,
it for you. Or
okay, no.
yeah, as you said,
Yeah,
in the
what I was
JavaScript based
instead
mapping, right?
suggesting, yeah, it should
Yeah,
be
actually,
somewhere
actually,
in
you can
your
add
UI.
yeah, you can add, but I mean, you can add as many. Basically, you can add multiple Istio at the same time, and they don't have to be on the same. They don't have to be running on 10,001 or 10,002. They can be on
Hmm.
any port, and you can register them. So yeah, we can have a default mapping. I think we can. Uh, but like this is also a feature that you can run multiple ST at the same time. So mapping would work for the hard coded kind of adapter URLs. But if you're adding something on like extra that you want to run, you won't most probably. But if you want to run more than one ST or more than one OSM, then in that
Hmm.
case, mapping would again kind of fail because machine UI won't know um, what exactly it
Yeah,
is.
I agree with that. That if you are running multiple adapters, then it would definitely fail for the second one. In that case, in my opinion, it would be okay that if we are not able to detect the mesh type, but if we already have 0 to 9 ports already, like kind of, uh, I don't know if it is documented exactly anywhere that 10,009 is for OSM or this one is for Istio. But if we have those already defined, then it makes more sense to at least have default mappings, and then for multiple adapters we can you know have a fallback kind of a mechanism.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, fall
Uh,
mapping kind of makes sense.
so I just have a weird, like an out of context wondering. Basically, the adapters and the Meshery server. Right now, the Meshery server is basically identifying each and every adapter that has been running in the network. But
Mhm.
is it a good idea to do it the other ways? Basically, whenever you initialize an adapter, that will
Mhm.
connect to a Meshery server, which is like that will basically have the Meshery server endpoint, and it'll try to connect to Meshery server and get registered instead of Meshery server registering the adapter. Basically,
Uh,
that's what we're doing.
Lee, would you want to answer that? Because right now, as I see, each adapter is a gRPC server in itself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
How
we're just making some requests there. Yep.
first of all, there's a bunch of offenses happening today. I mean, first of all, Franklin comes on, he trespasses on the call, which Franklin, there's no possible way that you could trespass. You're welcome to every single call. I mean, Ishan, you sort of pooped on your stash. I hope you wiped your hands after that. And we've got Shivank here just dropping in, no notice, just drops in. Anyway, very, very pleased that everyone's on the call. And these are great suggestions. I'm also just, super offended that anyone would suggest an improvement, which is, that's a total joke. All of what we do is just, it's just iteration after iteration after iteration. So to speak to Abhishek's comment first, I think it's probably a shorter one, which is, yep, it's a good thought. Like, hey, if you were going to scale a system, it's a little easier to, you begin to have a central directory, if you will, that you have individual elements registered to, and it's sort of, they're responsible for looking up, you have a single moniker, a single location that you say, here's the name of the server. Everybody just use the same name. Everybody, you reach in, you reach out to the server, you register yourself, et cetera. You have an exchange. That's probably a slightly better approach. In this case, like it's, it may or may not be worth the effort to switch that directionality around, perhaps. You to Ishan's points, to the extent that Meshery local.layer5.io is used versus localhost, at this point, there's not, localhost is slightly better because it's just shorter and it's the same reference, and it doesn't take an Etsy, it doesn't make you go modify your Etsy hosts. There was some logic behind why, I won't go through the reasoning as to why there is a special sort of DNS entry to be made. Now, okay, while we could list localhost and it would be a little bit shorter and you wouldn't have to make that entry, that's good. Those are two sort of positive steps forward. You still kind of end up in the situation where until the, by the way, Ishan, after you run a local, you said you're running one of the adapters locally currently, OSM?
Yep.
When you connect, so if you go back into your Meshery UI, when you connect, you'll see that adapter. I think you'll see it light up. Okay, so that's good. It's an indicator that you're connected. What's not a great indicator is that, well, okay. So I think it's because, anyway, you're not seeing the OSM icon. That would more or less solve the sort of the other part of the challenge for you around user experience. As it's really contributor user experience, because for users, this shouldn't happen. Like when the adapt.
I agree.
Not that contributor user experience isn't important. Like, hey, that's why we're spending the time today. It's possible that, I mean, the other route to go, one solution here is to make it, instead of moving us to localhost from Meshery local.layer5.0 to localhost would be like, well, is to go the other way, sort of go the opposite direction and make 10 different 10 different new entries in your Etsy hosts file. One of them for Meshery-Istio, Meshery-OSM, and just have them all mapped to localhost. That's one sort of workaround to the contributor experience. The other workaround, if you will, there, I think right now, we were trying to be sly, a bit slick earlier in Meshery's development. And in doing so, to Utkarsh's point, like you can register any number of the same type of adapter, like 5 Istio adapters, 10 Kuma adapters, and like 0 Linkerd. Like it's nice and configurable in that way. And so it's dynamic in that way. And there's sort of this process of registering when it's not a secure process, and it's not, register isn't the word that we usually use, but it's more of a, it's, an adapter connecting to the server and a little bit of discovery happening about what that adapter is, what its capabilities are, and just, interrogating that gRPC server, saying, tell me about yourself. What icon do you have? What's your, and I think what we've got going on, I know what we've had in the past is like between the name that the adapter uses to identify itself, um, open service mesh, for example, or Istio.
Mhm.
And the code, the switch cases, or like the statements in the JavaScript in the UI, are a little bit, in the past, they've been somewhat tethered. Like, hey, that string needs to, that same string that the adapter is providing needs to literally match some hard coded, a list of the hard coded names of the adapters that are supported by the server. And my hunch is that somewhere in this logical exchange,
Yep.
that we're, anyway,
Yeah. So yeah. Okay, you were saying something. Yeah. Go ahead.
anyway, I get, after 5 minutes of babbling on, like actually probably the best solution here, and it helps contributor experience, and it might help other situations as well. Is just like, look, let's take a look, let's re-examine that initial conversation that the server and the adapter has when the adapter says, this is my name, this is the this is my name, maybe this is my icon. That today the names and icons are defined more or less in Meshery server. We might want to push that to the source of truth, which is the adapter. Like, hey, the adapter should be self-identifying. That doesn't get rid of the chicken before the egg problem that Abhishek was more pointing toward, which is, well, hey, fine, let's enhance that exchange and that discovery. Let's make the adapter the source of truth for what its icon is and what it likes to call itself, what, like identifying the type of service mesh that it is. Because today we just use a string to match the type. That could certainly be much more strongly typed, if you will. Like this, that is a good enhancement to be able to say, oh, definitively that those two adapters, those are of type Istio, not just the word that matches Istio.
So about my point, I wanted to add another thing onto it is basically what we are doing is that Meshery tries to identify or discover the adapters, and in turn, after it is discovered, the adapter tries to initialize itself with Meshery. So what I was saying is to sort of skip that step of discovering the adapter and giving the Meshery URL directly to the adapter so that it starts from the second step.
You're right. I mean, that generally is a more scalable model. Like,
Yep.
for my part, I think there's effort spent better elsewhere for that particular thing. I think it would make sense to go affect that change to what Abhishek is saying. If we take a look at how we announce capabilities in general, and Abhishek and a number of others have been working on, well, the Meshery operator and Mesh Sync and other components, other Meshery components, other than just adapters. And each of those components in the server, they all have an exchange as well. Remote providers, Meshery server has an exchange with the remote provider, and then part of that exchange is that the remote provider says, these are my capabilities. The adapters say, these are my capabilities. Meshery operator says, these are my capabilities. They're like, and so I think it's potentially worth, even then, like it's potentially worth reassessing the directionality of those conversations and having sort of a uniform way of describing capabilities as we look at potentially integrating open application model, oam.dev. I'll put a link to that. And why are we considering integrating with oam.dev, which, by the way, last week's the recording from last community call, Ryan Zhang was on, I think, going over OAM. Why would we look at incorporating that? Is because we're looking at getting away from a very static and kind of fragile approach to managing workloads. Today, you can deploy a sample app on an adapter, and you do so by clicking, and which is great, but you'll deploy the sample app with really very limited ability to configure the app and how you want it to run, how much telemetry you want generated, and other things. That needs to become much more sophisticated. And so we might look to OAM to do that. OAM, open application model, has a structure for capabilities, registering capabilities and describing them. So if anyone's super hot on that, I would recommend digging into OAM. Let's have some more conversations. It's a decent sized project. If anyone is interested in just enhancing the contributor experience here, that's beautiful. I think you'll be successful doing both. You'll be much more successful doing this much smaller piece of work around this small exchange between adapters and servers. Hopefully that, so Ishan, does that help a little bit? I understand part of your, part of the initialization of your IDE, of your development environment was askew just because you sort of got started with compiling an adapter first and kind of came in from that direction. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
exactly.
Cool.
Yep.
So Sudan, I know you were going through an initial setup as well. How was your experience? I mean, what?
Yeah, like in my case, I started installing Meshery from the official documents and like to check out. And I had the first issue was that Podman and stuff. Later on, I got the support for Dockers in Fedora. So when I started running it and to say first when we ping the I'm using a Minikube, so when we ping the Kubernetes, it's successful, and when we refresh the page, it should display the each adapters, right? So like to say the what Ishan was mentioning, like it changes in my experience, like it changes with the logo, and it comes with the name of the adapter. But when we run in the like developer environment, when I run run local, I can ping the Kubernetes, but I think we have to run the adapter separately. Containers.
Yeah, right. Well, I hesitate to dive all the way into that because I think I'll talk everyone's head off for the next 20 minutes. Yeah, you're right. Sudan, I have a favor to ask of you and Sean as well, which is please be as critical as you possibly can about, well, either the contributing.md in the repo, and they really should be more or less one and the same. This contributing here, it may be that a single doc isn't enough, and it may be that it's confusing and it doesn't maybe it needs to, there's a flow about GitHub, great, but there's also a flow about, like, my perspective is it wouldn't take much for you to find a bug or to suggest an improvement. And as you no better time to identify that than right now as you're feeling that pain. So the whole thing might need to be restructured too. Yeah, you're right, Sudan. Sometimes depending upon which area of Meshery that I'm working on, which by the way, if people haven't sort of sat back and absorbed the architecture, good to do so. There's a number of components. I will say these are decent slides, but that here in our discussion today, there's a link to Meshery's architecture. those slides come from this deck, and this deck has a number of more pictures, illustrations to look at. I think that soaking these in is quite helpful. But anyway, Sudan, sometimes I will compile and like run Meshery server locally, but I will run some of the adapters in containers. So I might do a Meshery CTL system start, and maybe I'll just run mesh. If I'm working on an adapter, then I might just let Meshery server itself run in a container and other adapters run in a container. But I will go over and do like a Docker stop. I'll stop a specific container, maybe the OSM one, and then I'll compile, but I'll be working on code change in the NSM adapter, and I'll do a make run for that. So it's running locally on my machine, but the others are running in the container. Be aware that one thing that'll trip everyone up, most everyone, is when Meshery deploys as a container, when you do Meshery CTL system start and you deploy to Docker, Meshery will be deployed to a bridge network, or a new Docker network will be created. The default type is bridge, which means it's a separate IP address range. If you're having connectivity issues, just be aware of that. Sudan, how else can I make it more confusing?
Yeah, like I got the idea. Like some explanations in Ishan's problem. So I think
Yeah,
we
I
like it.
also experienced this thing. And then I thought that it's better to run and build Meshery itself instead of running it from Meshery CTL and trying to connect that to my adapter.
Makes sense. Yeah, totally. I won't even. Cool. Well, so Ishan, to my point, like just you walking through your setup sounds like was helpful to Sudan, and then no doubt to some others. So that's great. So we've got about 15 more minutes on the call. What do we want to talk about? The topics that are listed here, by the way, anyone is welcome to add to them. Sometimes it's critical that we talk about a particular item, and a lot of times not. So does anyone want to talk about one of these things in particular? Feel free to be selfish. Jekyll plugin. Yep. All right. A short note here. Everyone is familiar with docs.meshery.io. This site runs on Jekyll, which, I'm sorry, it doesn't run on Jekyll. This is a static site. It gets compiled. It gets built by Jekyll, and it just deploys and runs on GitHub pages. So it's just a set of static content. Now, Alonso and a few others have been helping with this, helping not just have all this described in English, but another language, the first at bat being Spanish. And he and others have been going through and making it so on an individual page basis. And this is good. They've made it through a number of pages. What's not excellent about this approach, and we know, Alonso and everyone else noted it from the start, was that, well, other aspects of what you're looking at don't necessarily get converted. Like why isn't this in Spanish? And why aren't these in a different language? And what if we want a language of, Spanish, and then, other tongues, other languages as well? There's a plugin for that. And so it's been a while since I went and looked at what configuration that plugin is going to take and what all needs to be done. I don't. It's not such a super difficult thing to do. It's a bit of legwork, which like I'm willing to help with. I know Shridi is willing to help with as well. Shridi, do you have on the top of your head what some of the considerations are? Have we identified the tasks that need to be done here?
Remember, yes, so basically all the translations need to be done manually, and those need to be under a separate folder, which should be, actually, I'm not completely sure about this. Whoever takes it up, I'm more than happy to have a meeting with him and relay it directly.
So that makes sense. So here's the issue number to reference. Inside that issue is a link to, I think, the plugin that Shridi and some others have selected, which goes through that. So Alonso, sounds like you and Shridi have a date next year, or maybe this year. I don't know. If anyone else is interested in this topic, just please just signal Alonso and Shridi. Be great to see another language as well. And once the plugin is there, it will provide the right framework for translating these pages. Cool. Alonso, any other comments on this? Does that at least get you pointed to some things to go read and to the right individual, to Shridi? Yeah, so good. Good. By the way, Pratik asked a good question about Podman support. So what does Meshery run on today? Meshery runs in Docker containers. You can run those Docker containers on your local machine or in a Kubernetes system. Meshery actually supports a lot of platforms. One thing that it has yet to, a couple of people have asked, this is the third time that I've heard someone ask, does Meshery support Podman? And I've come to understand that I think it's Fedora, later versions of Fedora don't have Docker installed, they have Podman. Which makes, so it would be convenient if Meshery also supported Podman. I haven't looked at, so that's a great issue to Pratik, a great issue to open and let's take a crack at it. Supported platforms. There's a list, lots of Docker, lots of Kubernetes, even more Kubernetes, but okay, cool. So yeah, Pratik, I'll look out for your issue. Is anyone
just a quick question regarding this? So can we just answer this? If Podman supports CRI or Open Container Initiative, then we can just say that Docker containers are directly compliant with it.
Yep, I think that's true. Yep, I kind of only anticipate that what will happen is people will come back and say, hey, while the containers run, when I want to do something convenient like Meshery CTL system start, it assumes that Docker is present. Or
Yeah,
hey,
because I think Meshery CTL is quite tied to the Docker YAML. I mean, the Docker Compose format. So yeah.
Yeah, like it uses Docker Compose command itself. So we need to untie that and have Meshery CTL be flexible towards using Docker, Kubernetes manifest, and other stuff.
Do you want to explain that a little bit further, Anirudh?
Yeah, so currently Meshery CTL, it uses Docker Compose to create an environment, the Meshery environment. And that is a pain because you actually need Docker and Docker Compose in your system or in the platform to start to actually use Meshery CTL system start. So it doesn't support manifest right now, and that's something to look towards. So it's either push Meshery to use manifest and use manifest, create the entire environment on Kubernetes, or provide a dynamic way to alter the functionality.
Maybe like we can also think about using the APIs provided by Containerd or things like that. Uh, so like you porting Meshery CTL code internally to use those APIs, so you can programmatically create the right containers on the right ports with the right network linkages, all coded as uh, and the source code itself, instead of relying on Docker Compose, YAML formats, or things like that.
That makes sense. Yeah. Hey, it's a suggestion well aligned with Meshery as management software, that you always want to invest into the most universal, the lowest common denominator, like the most universal approach. And yeah, yep. That's great. As a matter of fact, so it's a timely suggestion. Anirudh is just tying off the initial functionality for Meshery CTL system context and a context. So what time is it? Here we go. About 5 minutes left. And this is, I encourage everyone to jump in here and try out context now. And I think you'll get a sense of the direction there. Moreover, you're encouraged to jump in, because once context has initially landed, it will need to be propagated as a construct across all of the other system commands. Actually, not just across the system commands, but basically all of Meshery CTL. All of Meshery CTL needs to be context aware. Context meaning, well, it's actually, Abhishek, can you drop a link to the Meshery CLI or Anirudh into the Meshery CLI design spec in here? Context and what that means. Gosh, we've talked about this.
I'll drop it right now.
Thank you. Context and environment. But yeah. So Siddhan, I know we were chatting a little bit about, getting up and rolling with Meshery CTL. Anirudh is a great individual to connect with.
Yeah, sure.
Ishan, if that's a point of interest, I'm saying for you as well. Actually, Ishan, I know. Oh, very good. Talk to you soon, Shivank. Happy New Year.
And yeah, I posted the doc.
Nice.
I don't know if it's at the right place.
Good. Inside this doc that Anirudh has shared, there's a system context section. You'll want to visit that and just give that a read. Why are contexts necessary? What's the difference? There's some good material in there.
Okay.
If it's a point of interest, please do sync up with Anirudh, because he's busy making waves in there. Ishan, if the OSM adapter continues to be a point of interest, which, please do hit up Utkarsh, Utkarsh, you just landed a new sample app inside of the OSM adapter.
Yeah,
Nice.
the bookstore one.
Cool.
Okay.
With the remaining time, what else?
So, would you like to just brief on what's been up with Meshery operator? Like, I'm pretty interested in that. So, like,
Oh yeah.
if we can just discuss a little about it. Yeah.
Yeah. We thanks for asking the question. We've been trying to discuss about it for like the last about 2 weeks now. We keep running out of time, and so very briefly, Meshery as management software needs to be continually synced with the underlying platforms that are, or the platforms that are running service meshes and running the workloads. And for the most part, that focuses on Kubernetes as that platform that are running, where these workloads are and these service meshes are deployed. We want to keep a vigilant eye to VMs and non-Kubernetes things, but right now people are experiencing the most pain and are deploying service meshes to address containerized things, and Kubernetes being the core focus. And so in order to stay in sync with Kubernetes and treating it as the source of truth for the state of the world, like the state of where services are deployed and containers are running, and all that infra, we've a custom controller has been written to subscribe to interrogate Kubernetes and subscribe to updates about things that go on inside of Kubernetes. And that custom controller, it's called Mesh Sync. So it's to synchronize mesh, Kubernetes and service mesh specific info. So there's a custom controller here. There's a repo in the Layer 5 IO org that has this controller. Dev Kalra is a good individual to sync up with on Mesh Sync. Then there's an operator that takes care of and initializes the custom Mesh Sync. That operator is called Meshery operator. It also manages another custom controller, just more or less a vanilla install of NATs, because we end up using NATs to communicate some information. And so that Meshery operator is using the operator SDK. And Abhishek, Abhishek, correct me. And so Abhishek's a great individual to sync up more with on Meshery operator, Abhishek Kumar. And so we're like this community, all of you are in the process of trying to get, we're like right at sort of a V1, or right at a stage in which there's initial functionality and implementation, and like the team is working on like the deployment steps for how Meshery server will deploy Meshery operator. And yeah, there's some docs to point you to as well. So but that's it's the gist. There's two sort of discovery pipelines that run inside of MeshSync. One that's really concerned with just generic Kubernetes constructs and objects and understanding them and keeping track of them. And the other discovery pipeline is for different service meshes and learning about Istio virtual services or Istio destination rules or anything that's specific to a mesh, retrieving that, and then eventually having that in a database here for Meshery UI to expose or Meshery CTL to interrogate. Like one of the bigger use cases that is being worked on is a visual topology called mesh map. that will take that information and visually display it. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. There are calls on Tuesdays and Thursdays that tend to focus on this set of concerns. So
All right.
It's a good one. Anybody else? Or I mean, and Sean, anything else? Yes.
No, so not so far. I mean, I'll definitely go over the docs and the repo, explore the code base a little bit, come up with more questions if I have any.
Nice. Yeah, we do our darndest to put in all kinds of docs into the community drive. So it's definitely got a lot in there. Whoops. Good. Anybody else? Fair enough. Shriti, I think they've had enough of me.
All right. Thank you for coming in, everybody. Thank you for spending, well, almost New Year's Eve with us. Have a great New Year's. Have a great holiday. See you next week. Same time.
Yeah, see you next week. Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Okay. Bye all. Happy New Year.
Hey, everybody.
Happy New
Year.
Year.
Wash those hands. Wash those hands, Sean.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Bye bye.
Happy New Year. New Year, everyone. Bye bye.